Conference rankings. I would love to have a debate, but it's almost impossible with these results. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. Please like the video and subscribe. Even if you don't agree with me, if you enjoy the content here and love our live show, of course, Monday through Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time or post-game. So you can leave your comments and questions down below, but you can also debate me directly and discuss college football. Give me a call Monday through Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time or post-game, and join the chat, the best chat in college football. All right, let's get to our conference rankings, where it's not like a lot of other analysts, commentators out there that just kind of spitball it and say, well, the Big Ten's got to be the best because they won the national championship and that's all there is to it. No, there are a lot of morons out there that really don't know what they're talking about and do not have the ability to analyze. We will do that here because we've got the smartest audience in all of college football, and we appreciate your support. So here we go. We look at the results on the field. So keep in mind that, yes, once the teams start to play inside the conference, of course we can watch the games and try to judge the balance of each conference. So whether it's a top-heavy conference or it's balanced or how well the teams are playing, yes, we can make those evaluations, but they're basically at that point eyeball tests, because I'm not necessarily a mathematician, but I do know one thing, that regardless of how great a conference is top to bottom or how horrible a conference is, once they start to play conference games, guess what rule has never been broken in the history of college football? That every conference has finished with the exact same record in conference games. Guess what that is? Yes, I'm not going to answer that question because you better know what it is. All right, so we look at the out-of-conference games. And no, we don't just say, well, this conference went 12-4 and this conference went 6-8, so they're better. That's all there is to it. No, we look at the results in regards to the level of competition, the schedule, the difficulty of opponents. Yes, we put that into play as well. Let's start with overall record for all the conferences against everybody outside the conference, including the Group of Five and the FCS. For the SEC, 43 wins and 6 losses. For the Big Ten, it's 43-9. The Big 12 is 37-9. The ACC is 34-16, and for a bonus here, we throw in the American Conference because they've played some darn good football, and look at that. They have the same number of losses as the ACC outside of the American Conference, 30-16. Everybody's perfect against the FCS. For the SEC, it's 10-0. For the Big Ten, it's 14-0, 15-0 for the Big 12, 15-0 for the ACC, and even the American Conference is 12-0 against the FCS. Now let's look at the games against the Group of Five, and keep in mind that we've been doing this for roughly 10 years here at the Voice of College Football, and you can almost just mark it on a dime that the power conferences are going to win between 85 to 90%, possibly slightly over 90%, between 85 and 92% against the Group of Five, and that's holding up again in 2025. Where the SEC is 23-2 against the Group of Five. We'll go over those losses. The Big Ten at 23-3 against the G5. The Big 12 at 12-3. The ACC has lost 4 games against the Group of Five at 14-4. And the American Conference against the other Group of Five conferences, pretty strong 11-5 considering the ACC at 14-4. Now what really matters here is going to be the games against each other. The Big Ten against the SEC, the Big Ten against the ACC against the SEC. And keep in mind, of course, on the final weekend of the season, we've got 4 traditional SEC-ACC matchups. So these numbers are not done for the year, even though we've cleared just about 90% of the out-of-conference games. You also have Notre Dame, obviously, jumping from conference to conference, playing their agreement against the ACC. And so a number of games like Pitt and Boston College coming up for Notre Dame. They've got their big game against USC as well. So that's the bulk of games. It's Notre Dame against everyone else, and then it is the ACC and the SEC. Generally, everybody else has finished out their out-of-conference games. And this is what it is against power conference competition. And it's not close. The SEC is 10-4 against the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC. Well, we know the Big Ten is at least the second best conference in college football, right? Because here's the deal. I have done this every offseason. And early in the season, once the majority of non-conference games have been played, we've done a video like this. But also, again, once we clear the bowl games and the playoff games, we'll do the same thing at the end of the season, sometime in February, break down what these conferences did against each other and rank the conferences upon the completion of the season. And for the last 15 or 20 years, every year it's been what? The SEC, and it's not close. You may not like that, but that's the fact. Those are the facts for the past 15 or 20 years. Except, yes, in 2023 and 2024, the Big Ten could make an argument. Yes, the Big Ten had a legitimate argument in 2024 and 2023 as best conference, especially when you consider who won the most important games, who won the biggest games, because we can have that argument. Does a game between Vanderbilt and Rutgers count? Or should it be weighted as heavily as a national championship game? Okay, so the balance of the conferences versus does it really matter that your 10th best team in the ACC is better than the 10th best team in the Big 12? Those sorts of conversations I think are legit. And I think that you can take either side, that you rank all the teams and top to bottom and all the results are exactly the same. Or you say, you know what, we're going to weight these conferences based on the more meaningful games against between elite programs and really good programs and more meaningful games in big bowl games and championship games and playoff games. Both are valid. We do both here at the Voice of College Football. So again, the Big Ten obviously stepping up in 2023 with Michigan winning the national championship, Ohio State in 2024, and coming close to the SEC overall numbers. So there was a claim there for the Big Ten the past 2 years. That claim is gone. Now, I'm going to sit here at the end of this video and tell you who I truly believe is the best conference, second, third, and fourth, but the numbers would state slightly otherwise because the SEC is by far the best conference. We're not just talking about the record, but we're talking about the quality of wins here. For the SEC in mounting this 10-4 record, they've defeated Virginia Tech twice, Wisconsin, Clemson, Michigan, Notre Dame, Syracuse, also Kansas, Baylor, and Arizona State. That may not sound super impressive, but Clemson's still a good football team to a certain extent. Michigan is Michigan. We'll see how good they are, but they're probably a 9-3 football team at least. Notre Dame, of course, Texas A&M winning that game. And then Kansas, a decent team. Baylor, Arizona State, still probably in play in terms of a Big 12 championship, and Mississippi State nowhere near the top of the SEC defeated Arizona State. So these are a lot of quality wins, and even if it doesn't look impressive right now, once we compare this list against the other conferences, it's not close. Look at the Big Ten. What game does the Big Ten have to brag about? Ohio State beat Texas. That's it. That is really it. The other game should have been won by the Big Ten. Michigan State, Boston College, that's a nice win for the Big Ten in that it's a comparable seeding. Illinois, Duke. Duke lost to Tulane. Duke's really not that great a team. We'll see how they play in the ACC, but Illinois should win that game. They did win it on the road. Oregon, Oklahoma State, that's a gimme. Washington State, and yes, I did include Washington State and Oregon State along with Notre Dame. We could take them out as well. That would bring the Big Ten record back from 6-6 to 5-6 if we take out the Apple Cup. Nebraska beat Cincinnati. The wins for the Big 12 in going 10-6 against the other power conferences. TCU beat North Carolina, and so did UCF. They got 2 wins against Oregon State, so take them out if you want to, and you go 8-6 for the Big 12, but still 2 wins against SMU. That included TCU and also Baylor defeating SMU. Iowa State defeated Iowa. Of course, BYU over Stanford. We've got a West Virginia win against Pitt, and Utah defeated UCLA. So not mighty impressive, but still winning the games against the other conferences at 10-6. For the ACC, they've been abysmal against the other conferences at 5-12. Think they get hurt, obviously, by playing Notre Dame multiple times. But, man, Miami by themselves have 2 good wins with Notre Dame and Florida. Florida State beat Bama. And then Georgia Tech over Colorado, and Cal beat Minnesota. The losses, well, North Carolina by themselves has lost to TCU and UCF. Clemson lost to LSU. Of course, Virginia Tech's lost 2 games outside the conference to the SEC in Vandy and South Carolina. The Duke loss, of course, to Illinois. We talked about West Virginia and Pitt. And now this is pretty impressive by the American Conference. The American is 7-11. Granted, the ACC 5-12. The American Conference 7-11 against the power conferences. Memphis over Arkansas. Of course, Tulsa beat Oklahoma State. That's no great shakes. Army over Kansas State. I think that's going to prove to be a decent win because Kansas State, not what they usually are, but I think they'll rally to be a decent team this year. They got a win against Washington State as well, does the American Conference, so we could take that out to be 10-5. Tulane over Northwestern. Tulane over Duke. South Florida beat Florida. The losses, Tulane embarrassed by Ole Miss. NC State's a loss. Miami's a loss against South Florida. Oklahoma beat Temple. And on down the line. So if you want to be specific, but not too complicated, and keep it simple in rating these wins and losses, basically you've got the games that a conference should win. One of the best teams in your conference is playing one of the worst teams in another conference. Last season, Arizona State beat Mississippi State. The Big 12 champion beat the very worst team in the SEC. That should happen. You got those games. That you still give credit to a conference for winning the game, but they should win the game. Then you've got like-seeded matchups, comparable games. Iowa State at this point would consider to be a comparable game in terms of Big 10 and Big 12 to a certain extent. We thought Clemson and LSU, we'll see how it plays out. Comparable seeded teams, like teams. And then you obviously have those wins that are very rare where one of the worst teams in your conference defeats one of the best teams in the other conference. And we may have that with Mississippi State of the SEC defeating Arizona State. Now we'll see if Mississippi State, after playing well against Tennessee, taking the Vols to overtime, are probably remarkably better, but they still could be one of the worst teams in the SEC, and they could have notched a win against one of the best teams in the Big 12, a team that has already defeated Baylor and TCU. So really good win for the SEC, Mississippi State over Arizona State. How about bad losses? Embarrassing losses. So again, when Texas goes to Ohio State and loses by a touchdown, that's not a bad loss for the SEC. It's a missed opportunity to win against maybe the best team in the country, but it's not a bad loss. Let's go through some bad losses, meaning one of your best teams lost to what could potentially be one of the worst teams in another conference, or losing to a group of 5 that you shouldn't lose to. Let's run through some of those. For the SEC, do they have any bad losses? Well, in a sense, Arkansas losing to Memphis, but Arkansas could turn out to be one of the worst teams in the SEC, and Memphis could be the playoff rep for the group of 5. South Florida defeating Florida. Yes, the Gators should not lose to an American Conference team. Bad loss. And then we got to, of course, Florida State over Bama. We'll see how well that plays out in regards to national rankings and their final records. But at the time, Bama, a 2-touchdown favorite against Florida State, and the Seminoles coming off a 10-loss season. Right now, a bad loss for the SEC. In the Big 10, UCLA against everybody. Bad loss. Why? We know that UCLA is horrible, but they've lost to 2 group of 5 teams and gotten blown out by New Mexico State. Or was it New Mexico? Who cares? And they got blown out by Utah. UCLA against everybody is a complete embarrassment for the Big 10. Now, Tulane beat Northwestern. Is that a bad loss? Not necessarily a horrible loss, but Northwestern lost by 3 touchdowns to Tulane. They should be competitive in that game against a group of 5 team. And then the Iowa loss to Iowa State is not a bad loss, like it's an embarrassing loss. They lost at the gun, but that was a missed opportunity for the Big 10, just like Michigan not winning at Oklahoma. Not a bad loss, of course. Oklahoma could be a top 5 or 10 team in the country, but Michigan had an opportunity to win a big game for the Big 10. In the Big 12, bad losses? Well, yeah. Kansas State lost to Army. West Virginia lost to Ohio. And again, this Arizona State loss to Mississippi State, circle that one. Oklahoma State, like UCLA, is a complete embarrassment. So in light of them being the worst, in a sense, those are not bad losses because they're the worst team. But this is ridiculous. Anyone in the Power 5, losing to another Power Conference team 66-3, as Oklahoma State did to Oregon. And then, again, losing to Tulsa. That's a complete embarrassment. In the ACC, bad losses. Well, not that North Carolina lost to UCF necessarily, but that they lost 44-9. West Virginia may turn out to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12. They beat Pitt. That's a bad loss for the ACC. Otherwise, the ACC is just basically losing a ton of games. 12 out of 17, but they're not horrible losses, although that may be an indictment against the ACC that they're expected losses, that they are supposed to lose these games, and they just do. And then in the American Conference, bad losses? Not really. They're expected. They're supposed to lose these games, and they lost to the likes of Ole Miss, NC State, Miami, Oklahoma, Georgia Tech, BYU, Houston, Texas A&M, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Maryland. So if we wipe everything away in regards to our perception of how good these leagues are, who are the national contenders, who are the brand names, who won the national championship last year and the year before, and we just go by the numbers, it's pretty clear. The SEC is number one. And if you take it objectively and just watch the games, they may not have the best teams in the country. Maybe those come from the Big Ten. We'll see if Oregon, Ohio State, maybe Michigan gets in there, Indiana, Penn State, as the best teams in the country. I think that's a great debate between the SEC and the Big Ten. But you start to go down the ranks of the Big Ten versus the SEC, it's not close. Go 10 deep in the SEC, go 12 deep in the SEC. Look at what Mississippi State's doing and the likes of those kind of teams, okay? So SEC number one, it's clear, it's not debatable. Anyone, please debate me, call me. If we're going to be objective, it's plain. And again, I wanted a debate. We had one for a couple of years. We used to not have one. I'd put these videos together and say, please, SEC, somebody step up. Big Ten, step up. Make this a debate. And that happened for a couple of years, but no longer. Until the season's not over, get to the end of the season with 4 games against the ACC, and then we'll get into the playoffs. And maybe Ohio State's going to save the Big Ten again, or somebody will. Maybe. But the Big 12 has better results right now, better results out of the Big 12 than the Big 10. Just look at it. And we believe that the ACC is the worst conference in college football, although, again, come playoff time, Miami, maybe Florida State, maybe Georgia Tech's good. And so, again, balanced distribution of power within the conference is big because the Big 12 may be a better conference top to bottom than the ACC, and it may prove out, based on the results on the field, it has to date. But at the top, the ACC may be able to put together, again, led by Miami at this point, a surge in the college football playoff and make it shine over the rest of the league, much like we've seen in past years with Clemson in particular, holding the banner for the ACC and really upholding the entire league. All right, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Leave your conference rankings down below. Join me each and every Monday through Saturday right here at the Voice of College Football.